This episode is presented by Warriors Hope, serving our veterans by helping them reintegrate back into civilian life effectively. Visit them online at warriors-hope.org. And welcome to Surviving Danger Close. I am one of your hosts, Jerrod.
I am John.
Dustin.
And today we
Zach.
have a special guest. Our special guest, Zach. Now, Zach, what do you do, and why are you our special guest today? Other than because Dustin asked you to.
Yeah,
He
I
has
was gonna
no
say,
idea. I just said get on your computer.
don't really have a purpose. Otherwise, just Dustin invited me. But no, I'm a school resource officer, and I've been in this position for approximately 8 months now. So I'm kind of fresh into it, but I'm excited to talk about that position.
Now, I looked up, because we don't have a SRO in our area. John can correct me if wrong.
I will correct you, because the town that I don't know if they still, I'm sure they still do, but there was one in my high school, which was just a little bit away from you.
Okay.
And the next district over, we did have one.
Is that just an officer that likes to sit in the schools? Because we have those.
Oh, absolutely.
No, but he's since retired, so if you're listening, buddy, you know who you are. No, I didn't know what a SRO was, and Zach and I have talked on a couple occasions, so I got looking up. I'm like, well, what questions could we ask him? And the number one question that popped up on one website was, are SROs real cops? So we'll just open with that one, Zach.
Good question. That's a good question to start with.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. We're real cops. We're trained. We actually start out as, go out onto the road once we're done with FTO, and we spend a lot of time on the road, just gaining that experience, because if you're a cop out there or have done anything, juvenile matters are totally different, and you got to have a little bit more knowledge, and they want you to have a little bit of experience going into that. So we have all the same training, and then we have much more additional training that goes into that.
And the reason I'm on this show, what is FTO?
Field training. So as soon as you get out of police academy, you're going to go into field training. You start out with a experienced officer, and then it's approximately 16 weeks depending what department you're in. But
Right.
so you're going to do that, and then you're out on your own.
So how long have you been in law enforcement, Zach?
I've been in law enforcement for approximately 4 years now.
So 4 years, and then over the last year, you've been the SRO.
Correct.
All right.
Wow. So you waited till mid-pandemic. You waited till mid-pandemic to have to go in and deal with the schools and how they've been
when they're closed. That's, I think, when they're
mostly closed. Yeah.
So it's actually been great. Yeah, I mean, especially where I'm at, they closed it down for quite a while, and now approximately most of the schools are at 40 to 50%. So might as well start out halfway, ease myself into it, grab a few donuts and stuff, because they treat us all right in there. So.
No, we're 5 minutes in? He's already gone stereotyping on us.
Yeah, sorry, man. But it's true. I don't know about you, John, man, but I love me some donuts.
Well, I can't say I've ever turned one down. But I won't buy one. I know that. I don't want to be that guy that goes into Speedway. And I will tell you that in our small town near where Dustin works, I can tell you that at 3 a.m., the Krispy Kreme truck every morning was on its way to Speedway. And the dang guy had a burned out headlight, and I would not stop him because I did not want to end up on Facebook or YouTube or anything. Like, go on, dude, you're good.
Yeah.
That dash cam was going to come out.
Yes, exactly. Right. So I guess,
hey, Amanda,
Zach,
thanks for listening.
Is SRO something that you wanted to do, or was this an assignment voluntold to you?
No, this was definitely an assignment that I wanted to get into. And the main reasons for that being is there's something about giving back to the youth. I'm kind of a religious person. I shouldn't say kind of. I am a religious person, and just giving back to your community in that sense, and being in a role where a lot of people don't, realize, but being in a school is and I don't know what you feel about this, but a lot of the times you're dealing with people's problems on the road, and I contribute. It's probably 90 to 10%, so 90% positive, 10%. Or I'm sorry, 90% negative, 10% positive, what you're dealing with. Being in the schools, I would say it's approximately 70% positive, 30% negative of you're dealing with people's problems, approximately 30%. So having that fluctuation and change just kind of totally changes how you view law enforcement. So that was one of the bigger reasons. And then just being able to just interact, broaden my horizon, get into a different unit, do that stuff. And then a lot of it's public speaking too. So I wanted to expand on that and really just know how to talk in front of people. We do a lot of presentations with our schools. We teach a lot of law. So just kind of getting into that different facet of law enforcement that, some other departments don't have that opportunity to, but kind of saw opportunity to get into that. And that's why I kind of got into it.
So that's cool. So you found your own little niche that you were able to kind of make yours and hollow out and make a difference way.
Yeah.
Because when I worked midnights and I first came to day shift, my sergeant was like, "Look, man, it's not night shift out here. Okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna actually see decent people. Most of them are not drunk. Most of them are not beating on their spouses. You're gonna have to relax a little bit. So I can only imagine what it would be like to go into a school."
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's different too, right? So I started out on day shift, went from day shift to midnights to afternoons to days to schools. And each one of them has like its progression of what dirt bags you're running into. And it definitely goes down the line. It's midnights is the most, afternoons, you're getting that overlap, days, you're definitely dealing with less, and then schools is far, far less. So you got to be like on top of your game, and you got people coming into your office all the time asking you questions. So you got to be up on your laws and stuff like that. So it's a totally different world.
Sure.
Now, how many schools do you cover right now?
So we have approximately, and I should know this right offhand, but I'm just going to say 25 approximately. But we have 3 school resource officers. So we each cover approximately 8. Obviously, there's one that's going to have 9, but
yeah. So do you have like a set time, or do you have like an office or a space at each building that you work with or work in?
Yeah. So I don't do designated times. I like to keep everything inconsistent as much as possible. I don't want to be driving down the same road at 7:30 in the morning every single day, because we just don't like to do that in law enforcement. We want to stay inconsistent as possible. And the other reasons for that is I have one main high school that I go to and I have an office in. I don't want to be there every single day, every time at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because I have other schools. I don't want somebody waiting on me, or I want to be there as much as possible. That way the school knows that I'm there, but they have all my contact info. I have a cell phone, work cell phone, that they can contact me on. But I want to make sure that the other schools know that I'm going to pop in. Obviously, we're there for school safety, but also sometimes the kids need a little bit of correcting as well. So popping in on them guys a little bit once in a while just keeps them on their toes, making sure they're doing what's right.
There was a time that I was a school counselor for a school around here, and we didn't have a set SRO that came in, but we did have a couple of the same people from the local, the city police department come in. And one of them said he enjoyed doing it because he says we would be walking by each class. Now, he's obviously on the road more than he is in the school, but he'd be like, well, I know last week I arrested so-and-so's parent, or there was an issue at this place, so I just want to come. And his goal was to get to that classroom so he could just see that child in a positive light. Now, do you see any kind of interaction like that? Yours is obviously a little bit larger than our county, but
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely that overlap. So I'm not on the road, so that officer may deal with that situation and then go into the schools trying to seek that out. Now, what I do is I read the reports, and everything juvenile related that goes on in my school, the road officer will send to me just to give me a heads up. And so
Okay.
I can do that. I can go to that, classroom or whatever, and we'll give the school heads up as well, because they have counselors that are in there, they have APs, principals that are in there willing to help, and we just have a abundance of resources that can go in and help this child out after that critical incident that kind of happened, and we can take the steps that are necessary. So yeah, for sure, we have a lot of things going on in the schools. I don't even know, you can imagine what 25 schools is. I know our high schools are around 2,000 a piece. So there's a lot of
I think that's
so,
all 4 buildings that we have in our city is that's more than that, and that's just your high school.
Yeah. So
and you're obviously in uniform, right?
Yes.
Yep. So that way they do have that kind of that. Okay, I can see them in a positive light now.
Yes, absolutely.
And
when we step in the door, we're not just that. A lot of the times people will ask, well, why do we need an officer in the school? Well, we're not there to necessarily just be an officer. We're there to mentor. We're there to teach so they can stay out of trouble. We're there to counsel. Some kids don't want to relate or go to the counselor for every single thing. They want to see that officer that may have a better understanding of what's going on, maybe what just happened. Maybe they need to talk to somebody. Hey, my mom just got arrested, or my dad just got arrested, and they need somebody to bounce that idea off of. And it's building those relationships so they can come in and talk to you and feel comfortable with you. Because if, like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel comfortable necessarily when I was a kid growing up, just walking straight up to an officer and giving them all my problems that I had with my family last night. So it's really building that relationship. Sorry, what was that?
I still don't. I do a podcast with one.
Well, it's usually because we make fun of you.
You're active staring.
That's right.
Right. We're busy bullying Jerrod.
Now,
so what? I guess
the school. Oh,
go ahead.
I'll let you. No,
go ahead, Jerrod.
No. With a school that big, I mean, you've got 2,000 in high school, and like Dustin said, around us, I mean, 2,000 is more than a school district. So how do you build relationships with these students when you're bouncing between the schools and there's so many?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it is just getting your face out there, just recognizing that he's in our building. Why is he in our building? So teaching them that this is what we do, this is why we do it. And then just getting involved in the biggest population events you can. So obviously COVID's been a struggle, and that actually adds so many different difficulties for me getting into it, because I've had such a hard time to relate to them because there's no big events. So right now I'm actually struggling to relate to the majority, but I've actually built stronger relationships than I probably ever would with the students I actually see in person, because I can get to more of them.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Oh yeah. So you're not just popping in on their Zooms or anything.
No.
Classroom Zooms. See how Algebra 2 is going.
Yeah, but I'll stick my head out for the teachers. It is difficult. I had to do a Zoom class and teach in person. It is exhausting. It's not fun.
What kind of training did you have to lead up to going into the school?
Yes, nothing particular going into it. It's always after. So once you're in the position, I was selected, and I don't want to brag on myself or anything, but it's got to be a certain kind of person, somebody that is willing to relate to the kids. You don't want, Joe Blow that's 25 years on, hates the world, and just wants to, get out of here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You don't want that person going into your schools and representing your department and being that liaison, So it's kind of like I don't want to say handpicked, but they're very choosy in who they want selected in those positions. And then, we go to basic SRO, which is a week-long course, and then we go to advanced SRO, which is 3-day course. And then we do ALICE trainings, which I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but that's a lockdown type of thing. So it's an evacuation. It's just a whole protocol that encompasses that ALICE is, put into these schools. So all the kids are learning that. We teach that, we're instructors, and then we go to like a lot of teen brain type mentalities, trying to understand what's going on in the juvenile mind. So lots of trainings that go in on that stuff.
Good luck.
Right,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's like a doctorate right there. Jeez, Keith.
Yeah.
What's your thesis?
Yeah, and
Man.
I haven't made it to all the trainings, but I've just starting on them. So COVID's been a real struggle to get in trainings and stuff.
Yeah. Did you have a question, John?
I was gonna bounce one off you, Zach. So
Sure.
I do enjoy going into some of the schools, but I prefer speaking with the younger kids. There's no way in the world would I go into a high school, but I do have fun going in and reading to like elementary kids. So I guess when you have situations, right, exactly. When you have situations that deal with obviously crime, do you handle those as the SRO, or do you just take them basic information and hand it over to a patrolman?
No, we take all of our cases, and I would say mainly out of like excluding sexual assault cases that are like in depth. We pretty much handle ours all the way to the finish. So we're getting into the detective type stuff. So it's actually kind of a unique position. But yeah, and how we deal with it is we're an officer first, right? We're not that mentor. We're not that counselor at that time. We need to be the officer and deal with the problem first.
Okay. Well, that's unique, because it seems like now out of all the school districts in our county, we are assigned each officer is assigned different schools. And so we try and get in there prior to COVID, we try and get in there and do as much as we can. But unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, we're in there because specifically media, Snapchat, Instagram, and some of the things we have to do is obviously educate. Just because you delete it doesn't mean it's deleted. And once it's on the internet, it is there forever. And so I was just, we don't have SROs, and like I said, we do go into the schools. Obviously, local police departments have more of an opportunity to go into their local schools than a deputy would. But that's an interesting perspective there. Kind of a unique caveat to a relationship too, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and being in a local PD, we're such a large city with so many schools. We have to have people that are closely monitoring those. Every school's in danger per se of that active shooter could happen, right? But with the amount of people that could have casualties and stuff like that, our city just designates so many to that. So
that's a good thing to have. But nope, you're good. Go.
I was going to say, we're all, anytime it comes to schools, the first thing any officer is going to say is active shooter. It's been what's ingrained into us. But what would your experience in the last 8 months with COVID, what would you say through your experience would be the greatest threat to children in a school, aside from active shooter?
Man. Honestly, the thing that comes up, the thing that comes up the most is just like pure, and I don't want to say it's. Most of it's just bullying and cyberbullying. Though these kids are ruthless, and they'll pick somebody apart to the point where they're ready. They're calling us and hitting suicide hotlines and stuff like that, and it's just like. And these kids just are joking around about it because they found the odd hen out, and it's crazy. So me personally, from what I've seen and what I've actually dealt with, that seems to be one of the bigger issues.
Aren't you glad they didn't have the internet when we were growing up?
I know.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine.
Little known fact, guys, is Zach and I went to the same school. One of us is older, and I won't say he's the younger one, but there was enough going on without the internet. I can't even imagine being a kid and going home. At least when you and I would go home, we were away from a little bit. But when they go home and pick up their phone and look at it, it's right there in front of their face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Aside from the bullying, we do see a lot of, let's see, a lot of blackmailing type stuff.
Yep.
Somebody will feel comfortable sending or posting a provocative picture, and the next thing you know, hey, I'm going to release those photographs unless you do this. So a lot of times, a student can get backed into a corner that way, as well as, unfortunately, I find kids to be too trusting. They're so naive, and I don't know if that was maybe the same way 10 years ago, or just now the kids. I don't want to say they're dumb, because they're ridiculously intelligent when they want to be, especially with electronics. But they think because they talk to somebody on the Xbox or the PlayStation or online, they know them, and they totally are trustworthy of that person. And I just find that just absolutely alarming.
Yeah, and predators are constantly seeking out those chat rooms and Xbox Lives and all that stuff. I mean, and they'll act, and we all know that. But Johnny at 14, 13 years old just doesn't realize that it's not his buddy on the other end. So it's alarming.
Yeah, and that's got to be one thing, is just they get so open. It's like they're behind the keyboard and they get open to, okay, now I can pour my soul out because I'm in a private chat and none of this is going to go anywhere. But they have no idea who's on the other side of that keyboard. And we've seen it even in our small community countless times, and especially in a town your size or a city your size. That's got to be multiplied by, quite a bit.
Well, and especially in my city, I mean, everybody's got the newest, latest, and greatest phones. I mean, these kids are smarter than their most of their parents, and literally, and in my city is what you'll see is parents are too busy working and don't have enough time to monitor what the kids are doing. So it's a lot of family issues, and then it stems into, okay, well, if the family's not going to provide me with attention or whatever it is, I'm going to go seek it somewhere else.
And even negative attention is still attention.
Exactly.
In the psychology, getting into a little bit of the psychology of a young mind, they don't care if it's negative attention or not. They just see, okay, somebody's seeking me, so I'm going to do whatever I can to please them, even if I myself have to become false.
Yep. And I just took a complaint this last week, and very, very similar. This kid's super bright, just has anger issues stemming from a divorce, and he just can't deal with it, and he seeks out negative attention and lashes out and different things like that. So very true.
Now I'm assuming that
teachers talk to a lot of teachers, and that's when I know you guys always see the couple of times I try to talk, and that's why I don't talk.
We just forget you're there, except for the beginning.
Jerrod got the whole eye roll going,
right? I forgot I got video. Hold on. That's the only way I made it through customer service for so many years. Nobody could see my eye rolls. No, I was gonna say, talking to teachers, they know when the kid is more comfortable at school than at home, because that's where they act out. Kids always act out where the comfort is, and if comfort's at school, so that's when the teachers end up seeing it. So I mean, a good teacher really zones in on that, and I know especially in this little town that we're at, they really zone in on those.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to us having to be an officer and deal with possible crimes that these kids are committing, we actually kind of have to peel back the layers to figure out if there's some underlying issues. So sometimes on the road, we're just so quick to, okay, you did this, clear cut, black and white. okay, that's your punishment. We're going to arrest you. We're going to take you to jail. That's it, right? But when you get into these positions, you really got to start looking at, well, what's going on at home? What's, maybe what's going on with some friends. And because if you don't deal with the problem right away and you start peeling back some of those layers, you end up dealing with it. Let's say they're in 8th grade, you deal with it from 9th to 11th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, right? So you're going to be dealing with that issue continually until you actually solve the problem.
See, now we're all gun shy to ask you questions.
Are you good, Jerrod? Can
Go ahead, Dustin. That's fine. I'll allow it. I'll unmute you and allow it.
One thing. I'm down on myself.
We got
that
thumbs
was one
downs
thing
going for those just listening.
Right. Yeah, they're lost. That was one thing I was thinking about was how, if you go into a situation, I'm assuming that if they call you, it's already escalated beyond their normal procedures or their normal SOP. So when you get into that situation, you realize, okay, maybe this this child has a mental health deal, or maybe there's something that he talked to you about, he or she. How do you approach those situations? Because as you said, it's not like a quick response at a traffic stop with cars flying by you, but you're in a setting where you've got a lot of eyes, cameras. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, culture in John can attest to this a little bit longer, or a little bit more, because you've worked in law enforcement a little bit longer. But yeah, now today's age, you always have to be cognizant of cameras, people's phones, eyes, and stuff like that. But something you kind of alluded to already, the teen brain works so much differently. So if we're specifically talking about juveniles, there's this thing, and I can't remember exactly what it's called because I didn't. It wasn't taught to me. One of the other SROs kind of taught it to me, and like just showed it to me. And it goes with adults as well. But once you're in an escalated state, there's no reasoning with that teen brain.
No.
Right? You cannot reason with that. You cannot tell him what to do. He's going to do whatever he wants until we get him down into this de-escalated phase, and we're going to talk to him down here, and then we're going to be able to reason with him. So whatever we do up at this point is, if we start raising that escalation point, he's just going to go one step further, right? So we have to be able to maintain that low key and just bring him down until he's at a level where he can actually think and be able to reason with himself. And once they start to get to that point, a lot of them will be like, especially if you have a relationship with them, they'll be like, yeah, I freaking messed up. And they realize what they did. They understand exactly everything that just went on. But when they were up at this level, it's that fight or flight type mentality. Like they're fighting for whatever they can. And until they come back down is when they start to realize everything that's went on, and they actually realize that they made a mistake.
And you being in uniform, probably when they don't see maybe the face or know it's you, they look at it and say, okay, now the cops are here, and that may automatically send them up even higher. So that makes your job all that much more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a lot of kids that are dealing with mental health, and one of the main triggers is a uniform, man. And that's why I try to go to those classrooms a lot, is so they know me. They understand who I am. They understand why I'm there, and as much as possible, so that when they see me in a scenario that they're not necessarily going to like the outcome, they can at least see a familiar face.
Now, what kind of things are you trained to respond to when it comes to that situation? I mean, if somebody's, I know when I worked at the school here, we had a safety code, and myself and a couple other designated safety trained, I can't remember the name of the program, would show up. But if you're on site or if you get called, how bad is it going to be, you think?
I mean, that's kind of a difficult question, mainly because I don't know if I'm understanding you properly. But it's the same as on the road, far as you don't necessarily know what you're getting into. So I would relate the school staff as dispatch. School staff doesn't. When you're a school resource officer, you are the first responder, but your dispatch is the school. It doesn't go from school to dispatch to you. They just call you directly. So you're getting this. They don't understand law enforcement for the most part. They don't understand what situation is arising unless it's very clear cut. And then, you know, and I'm not trying to put anybody down. You just have to understand that law enforcement culture to understand what kind of information we need. So sometimes, you know, obviously I love dispatchers. If any dispatchers are out there, don't crucify me.
Amanda's listening. Amanda is listening. So.
But you're getting that secondhand information from, you know, Joe Blow on the side of the street saying, "Oh, there's a fight in progress," and gives you all this crazy information. And then you're sending it to the officer, and the officer, well, it's not. Like, it's nothing that you just described, right? So it's the same type of thing. So it really could be anything that you're walking into. We're always ready for the worst possible outcome, and then we can always de-escalate and deal with whatever problem we actually confront.
John, you're thinking.
I took a deep breath just to hold the air. You know, I'm waiting for my turn. So, you know, I'm sure you can attest to this, but the Zoom has been a great asset in kind of a practice of if something should happen, this can work. You know, and I think there are students that probably do better in Zoom settings than in person, as vice versa. But, you know, for us, I can really tell which schools are back in person versus still virtual, because some schools do really great jobs at identifying their troubled students and the home lives. And so when they're in virtual learning, we don't get a referral for nothing, right? Like, you can't buy a referral. And then all of a sudden you'll get 5 in one day, and you're like, guess what school district's back in the person, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, and I do appreciate the staff that does look out, and they are mandated reporters. I do appreciate the staff that does look out for their children and obviously their best interest and safety. But it is something that, you know, maybe should be said, I guess, to administrations to, you know, ponder, I guess. What, you know, it sounds like you can agree with that as far as the staff. What are some things that parents should be looking for, I guess, if they're, you know, children are friends with, you know, obviously other students, and, you know, when the teachers aren't getting hands-on or eyes-on with their kids, classroom setting, safety-wise, what is something that a student could look, I guess I'm trying to work through how I want to word this. You know, if Jerrod's got a concern about another student, what's something he could tell his mom or his dad, you know, because we've all seen the Zooms where kids are interrupting by parents, you know, and maybe say some things that they shouldn't. What are some things that parents could look for, or how to report, I guess? That's a big mess. I'm sorry. Should have thought about it more.
Yeah, I mean,
we like to call those buckshot questions.
Yeah, I'll try to answer it as best as possible, as far as what I understood. So, I mean, if the child is seeing something that maybe his friend is in a troublesome situation, I mean, I would always suggest, hey, just let your parents know. And a lot of kids, and I think it was true when we were growing up as well, a lot of kids don't want to be known as the narc or the tattletale, right?
Right, because stitches get stitches.
Exactly, right. And it's still a mentality. It's probably called something different now, but that's one of the biggest things I'm trying to catch up on is the stinking lingo.
Right. Here, let me text my nephew and find out.
Yeah. But it's that mentality of, okay, well, this is now my responsibility. I saw something, and we're actually seeing a little bit of a change of, okay, even though snitches get stitches, that's my friend, and he's not looking like himself. And we're seeing a lot more kids like, hey, you know, maybe he texts another friend and say like, hey, do you see anything going on with Joe? And they're like, yeah. So then they'll go talk to their parents and be like, hey, something's going on. So we have in our city, most of the parents can reach out directly to the assistant principal or the principal, and they'll contact them. And now they've contacted a mandated reporter. And so it just starts that system, right? So whatever situation it is, what I always tell kids is, if you see something, don't be afraid to say something, first of all, but find somebody that you trust. If it's not your parents, that's why I'm there as well, right? Come talk to me. If you're seeing something that, hey, like, you don't want to go talk to the assistant principal or your counselor about, come talk to me. Like, so that's just kind of different things, but we always got to try and push them to say something first of all, but then find somebody that they trust and that will actually do something.
Now, how can a student pull you aside to talk to you secretly without anybody saying? Because if you're standing there in a lunchroom, you know, there's a couple hundred students already in there, and once your classmates see you walk up to the officer, they know something's happening. So how can they see you discreetly?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. If it's in my current high school where I have an office, they can always stop by and, you know, walk right into my room. So the door's always open. And that's just a mentality that, you know, like I said, you're always a mentor, you're always a counselor. So you got to be available to them in that way. So that's one way. Or they can seek out an assistant principal or secretary staff. All of the main staff has my number. And they can shoot me a quick text and say, hey, can you meet with this guy at his home? Or can you meet with him at the end of school? Or, hey, he's got a free period. This time he's going to sneak out and come talk to you. So lots of different ways that we can kind of keep it on the down low.
Okay. I don't think they're saying that, though.
No,
I don't think they're down low anymore. No. They definitely have something new for that.
I'm an old soul at heart. So.
Please. Yes, me too. You know,
old knees, body.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you probably do the whole program, the OK to Say program, you know, and I've never actually have gotten a referral from that, so I don't know how the state filters that down. But the OK to Say is a program.
Yep.
Just give me a minute.
I'm trying to participate now.
Oh, well, thank you. If you could just please awkwardly stare at me. So it's OK to Say is a state-funded program where kids can text or call tips, basically kind of a crime reporting or an abuse reporting or anything of the sort. And then somehow that information gets to law enforcement. That I don't know. I'm sure kids use it, but I've never personally handled something from there.
I haven't either.
But as far as parents, you know, just because you're not a mandated reporter, you know, and to clarify that is there are certain people designated by law that if they learn or have knowledge of a crime being committed, they must report it to the state, to law enforcement. But that doesn't mean parents can't do the same or loved ones. And there is a centralized intake number that parents can call, which is for DHHS. And there you can report not only child but senior citizen abuse or vulnerable adult. See, I'm normally in bed by now. Vulnerable adult abuse. And you know, yes, I'm old and I work days. So, you know, so those are some of the programs out there that for the state of Michigan anyway, that parents that have school-age children should be aware of to report those things. Jerrod's intently looking at the internet right now.
No, I'm.
Well, he posted the OK to
Say
website.
So now I'm on thehotline.org when I searched MDHHS.
Gotcha.
Abuse and
centralized intake. Yes.
Right.
I've got the number on both my phones if we want to share that too.
Yeah. And a lot of what you were talking about right there, anybody can call directly to the local police department, right? So a lot of the times what we see though is they're not confident what they're dealing with is a crime or something like that. So it's like a filtration system. Like, hey, I'm gonna contact the AP and just let her know, because they should probably know. Well, a lot of the times it's a lack of confidence in going straight to the police and actually knowing what they're actually seeing.
Sure. Or lack of confidence in their police.
For sure.
Unfortunately, I've seen that.
Yeah. And probably up where you are, you might have people that hate the state police and like, I'm only using the county, or hate the county and I want to go to the state police, right? So
yes, it's wonderful working for an elected official sometimes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Anybody?
I'm just putting the centralized intake number on there.
Oh, dude, you got to sign up for the email, the online version. It's amazing.
How come you're
So much
posting under our
easier.
name? I'm only posting under myself.
I don't know. I just grabbed the phone and did it. Remember, I give my phone to my 5-year-old and tell him fix it.
I don't have a 5-year-old. I just have 2 cats.
I'll
They
loan you
probably
one.
do better. So one thing when we always talk about cops in
Is
school
Jerrod
and and SROs is they always want, active shooter. That's, as soon as you see any police car at any school, that's what people are thinking about. And
Sure.
the one thing that popped up to me was that cop in Florida that ran the other way. And now that is, just because I was Googling, in my vast preparation of 5 minutes before the show, but just Googling it real quick, that was the first one that came up. And now SROs, if you Google it, you see the negative part of it. And,
That's Google
active
for you.
shooters, active shooters in schools. I mean, yes, there's a possibility at any school. We're not going to say that every school in our area is going to be safe because we just don't know. Anything could happen, but the likelihood of it is small. But what do you say to somebody in there that says I don't think we should have cops and they use that as the example? Because there's a lot that they don't want the cops in. I think we alluded to it earlier. They don't want cops in school because they think it creates, I don't know, military government. I don't know. But what do you say to that argument?
Yeah, just kind of explain that our role is not just to be a police officer. And when you actually day to day, every single day, my role as a police officer is probably used like 5% of the time. I mean, 95% of the time it's meet and greets. It's talking to teachers. Hey, what are you guys seeing? What do I need to look out for? But it's not putting on that officer hat. You're doing something totally different. So I explain those other roles. And luckily for us, we had a guy that kind of paved the path. And he's just excellent with all the different kids in the schools. And he was running the show for a long time. In the whole district, which was crazy, but he did such a good job paving the way that we really don't have to come into that. So we don't get asked that question too often anymore. But if I do, that's what I tell them. It's just we play many different roles, and a lot of the times what people think is you're getting this street cop off the road and then you're throwing them right into school, and they're going to over police every situation, and everybody's getting arrested, everybody's getting a ticket, and we've kind of squashed that mentality. And you try to deal with everything fairly, but you got to realize that they're juveniles, and like I said, you try to peel back of, is this a troubled child? Is this a repeat offender? Is this a one-time instance? And get that background information so you can make the right decision. But yeah, a lot of people will think of over-policing in the schools, and you just got to try and break that barrier down.
Right.
And a lot of it comes from.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, it wasn't me this time.
Oh, wait, let me do the eye roll.
I did it. So, any cop that's been working just over, any day would tell you that juvenile crimes are absolutely horrendous to do. All right, they just suck. Okay, the juvenile system in itself is just horrible, 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 horrible. So anything you can do to alleviate really, anything to do with kids, the better.
Sure.
But it's just amazing, like the point where you realize you are old and you shouldn't be in the schools, but you have to be willing to learn from these kids. Like,
Yeah.
I never did Snapchat, I never did Instagram, but really, you almost have to, because almost everything that what's a fair percentage? Probably 70 to 80% is all Snapchat and Instagram. I mean, Facebook's kind of fallen off. Really, a lot of kids today don't even use it. They just use Instagram and Snapchat, and it's just us. Right, it's just the old people complaining about everything of why Facebook's So but you have to be willing to learn those things and use them to your advantage, and even the language. I mean, even drug crimes. It's ridiculous. You want to know how much you don't know about drugs? Arrest somebody with drugs, and you won't even have a clue. The stuff today is just ridiculous, and it takes a lot of knowledge and a lot of learning or willingness to learn to look at those things. So what way would you have, in order to prepare for this over the last 8 months, what are some of the things that you've personally had to learn or do?
Yeah, so I mean, just learning, honestly, the same stuff that you just talked about, like being involved and learning all the new, because there's tons. Like you name the two major ones was Instagram and Snapchat, but there is a ton of different apps out there. Some conceal or delete messages as they go, which is Snapchat, but a lot of other ones do as well. So there's certain ones that they go to that they do some inappropriate things on. And as an officer, you don't really want to know about that, but you're like, okay, I appreciate you let me know about that, because, so that's some of the things. Staying up on like just culture and what they're going through, right? So this is one of the things that, I live in kind of where you guys do, just a little bit further south, and then I work down in the city. So it's definitely not what I'm used to where I'm from and where I'm at now. So I have to develop that culture that they're living in so I can understand them better, right? And that's something that took a little while just to, just between the schools, it's different, right? So you got one school that is doing its own thing over here, and then you go to elementary school and they're from, the south end of the neighborhood. And it's just a totally different bunch of kids. And so you got to learn what they're doing, what they're, what makes them tick, right?
Sure.
So that's been the biggest things to try and incorporate. And then, like you said, just learning the differences of juvenile law, to, what the normal adults are, dealing with, and how it's different, right? But a lot of what you just said is a fear of not knowing how to deal with that, right? So that was one of the biggest things as a road cop. You deal with, all the normal stuff, and then when you get a juvenile, you're like, whoa, let me call the DB or something, something going on, right? So like you gotta be able to work through that, and it takes you forever, but a lot of it's just because you don't understand it. And so getting into this, it's that special unit, right? It's that you just got to figure out your stuff that you got to learn, and it becomes the new normal. And then so you're just adding on tools to the belt over your career, right?
Sure. It's kind of like volunteering for the sex crimes unit, right?
Yes.
Nobody really wants to volunteer for that.
No.
And the stuff you're going to see, hear, and have to learn, nobody in their right mind wants to do this, but they realize that they need to, because there's a lot of evil out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, very good.
And you had mentioned earlier, Zach, that maybe you could meet them at their home or something like that. So how much of your job is also done outside of outside of the school buildings?
Oh, I mean, every time, I get a complaint, if I can't handle it inside the school, which is, 75% of the time, and I'm a face-to-face person. So like, I want to see, I don't want to have that phone call, because you can pick up a lot of telltale signs off their face, off their, different things that are going on. So when you're dealing with, maybe you don't have all the evidence, and you're kind of fishing for some information, because these kids, it's a whirlwind of, oh no, Johnny was involved, he did it, and then Johnny's like, no, George did it, and it's just it's a mess, right? So you got to kind of figure out the cluster, but doing that face to face at their home with their parents, kind of looking over their shoulder, adds that little bit of extra piece that you may need to get them to actually tell the truth. So I would say around 75% of my cases lead me outside of the school.
And do you respond during the day to any other calls outside of the school?
Like I said, any juvenile that pertains to the district or my schools, because we have some different religious schools that are in the area as well that we deal with. I would go to any of those, but if I'm on the road and I'm available to jump a run, I'll jump a run. I was just I was about a mile away from a drunk that was at 1 p.m. That was sleeping in a 1-lane construction zone, holding up big the traffic, and it was just a mess. So he had held up traffic. I had to drive the median for about 4 miles. No, about a mile. I had to drive the median for about a mile to get to him, and he was still sleeping as I was banging on his car, and had to wake him up and throw his car in park and turn off his car and get him out of the car. So yeah, we jump stuff. We we always help out, because the guys on the road, we have minimums and different things like that. They're getting beat up all the time, so if we can snag one for them, we try to.
Well, it's much appreciated, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially that one.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Now, the question I guess that Dustin probably has is, did you address the guy by name? Did you recognize him?
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't.
Because your guys' line of work, you have repeat customers.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I worked for a smaller town before this, and I would definitely see repeat customers. I can't say that in my city I have seen too many repeat customers. It's just you have them, but it's like officer, the night before dealt with him, be cognizant because you're going to deal with them today. So it's that recognition of report to report.
Gotcha. So in the final 7 minutes,
Sure.
in what ways have you had to adjust? I guess I didn't ask you this. Are you married?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Been for 2.5 years.
Congratulations. Any children?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that'll be a work in progress. So in what ways have you had to adjust your mental health, or how you take care or view your relationship, maybe even as talking about growing your family, in your role as an SRO versus a road cop? In what ways has that affected you?
Oh, it's kind of difficult, because before I said it's been more positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my wife, I'm not a midnights person whatsoever. So when I did my midnight shift tour for 6 months, I was a bear, and I was I was just a grumpy old person, right? And
Right.
so she definitely noticed the difference, and
Mm-hmm.
it takes a toll on her when I'm not feeling good and stuff like that. So
Sure.
we had to work through that, and but going into the SRO position, like I said, it's more positive. So I actually come home and I have a little bit more bounce in my step, and I'm ready to kind of tackle things more at home. Whereas, you get that run that just affects your life, and I just don't see that on a daily basis like the road guys do. Now, I will tell you this: when you get a crazy thing that happens to children and you got to deal with it, it does suck.
Right.
And it does take that effect on you. So it's not like we just don't get the everyday stuff, but when we do get it, it's usually a cluster, and it does affect you. So
Sure.
we were actually just talking about it today, and it was more on just being a police officer in general. just that mental toll. I was talking to a retired police officer that just retired from our city. He called me up and he's like, you wouldn't believe the amount of stress that you hold on your body over the course of your career, and you don't realize it until about 2 weeks after you retire, and you feel like you can stop looking over your shoulder, and you can stop, okay, I'm not in a cruiser right now. I can
Right.
rest easy sitting at a traffic light.
That's good.
So that was kind of interesting to hear.
It is.
But it's kind of true. You don't realize the stress that you carry with you every single day because you get used to it. You get accustomed to it. But
Right.
I would say
our normal is
definitely
kind of
more
messed up.
Yeah, definitely more positive going into the school resource, but you still deal with things. But I would say overall more positive, so a little bit happier home life.
Good. It's funny you mentioned that about your coworker, because I've got a coworker that's coming up on his retirement, and I spoke to him the other day, and I said, like, seriously, you look different. Since he dropped his paperwork, and he goes, you're not the first one to tell me that. He says, I feel the stress leaving. I'm like, legitimately, you look like you're alive again. You look younger. You actually look happier. Like, it's funny that, we all wish that we could retire someday, and we want to ride into the sunset. But when you see these guys, I had this conversation, like, I didn't realize that when I became the old guy, like the group that when I hired in,
you?
no, you don't. But you don't realize how fast your career progresses.
Yeah.
And Zach, you said 4 years roughly.
Yes.
So, when I hired in 13 years ago, my guys that I was friends with, they're retiring now, and it's like, holy shit, I'm old. But it's something to look forward to,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just crazy to see them actually fulfilling what so many people don't get to do. It's kind of weird in the police line of business, police work. Not many retire, like actually do their time and get to leave honorably. Quite a few get hung up on a roadblock somewhere, leave on their own accord, been asked to leave. Many go out on injury or disability, whether it be cancer or some stinking health problem that comes to our profession. But yeah, man, it's crazy. So, man, Zach, I wish you all the luck down there. Hopefully you guys end up,
man.
It's just like a teacher, right? You hardly ever work, and you're going to be out there collecting a full paycheck. We're getting, he's just going back to in-person school, and here comes the summer break.
Yeah, exactly. That is very true. Very true.
It was nice to hear from you, Zach.
That poses a good question.
It,
What does the SRO do during summer break? Do you go and run patrol during the summer, or do you get to do the same time off?
Yeah, so it's up in the air right now. Normally we go into an investigation position because we're up in that unit. So we'll start taking cases and different things like that. But it sounds like as far as manpower, we're a little down this year. So we might have to go back out to patrol.
You too?
Yeah. But you know what? And it's interesting. I've only got, approximately three and a quarter years on the road. So I still feel like I have a little bit left to learn, and kind of excited if I get to go back out because, still hungry, still want to, run and gun a little bit, but it's just one of those things that,
John.
No. Yeah. Yes, I do. I still like to find stuff. Just my stuff now is different.
Yeah.
It's just
but no, that's
now.
that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking to transition to, right? So I'm trying to be a little bit more investigative because I have that experience now, and kind of transition into finding a little bit bigger stuff, and
Sure.
So it's kind of interesting. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited either way. So
well, good for you, man. I'm
we'll
glad
back
that there's
in
still
a couple
officers
months
out there
and see where you're
happy.
at.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
This job will kill you. That is no doubt.
Yeah,
He may
and
be on
it
midnight,
does.
folks.
Yeah.
So, oh, we got a new nickname for you from Amanda there, John.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Papa
know.
John.
It's not even a new one. That's the sad part.
Hey, it's new to Jerrod and I, so we may have to change some chat settings here. Thank you.
Chat settings. Change all the descriptions on the videos.
Well, can you make the font bigger?
You grab
Whatever,
these two
you
fingers
guys.
and you spread them apart, and then it comes bigger.
Wait,
Did you get new glasses.
Never mind. You know what? Forget it. I can't even talk like that in front of a religious SRO. Come on, man. I can't do that.
We're gonna get it when
funny.
you log off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So,
Zach, if
All
you
right,
need to
Zach,
talk
well,
to me
thanks
about anything
for-
that Dustin has done, just let me know.
Right.
Yes, sounds
Sounds
good.
like he's done this
I'm
before.
sure he's got stories. So, Zach, thanks for coming on tonight. Real informative. I appreciate you and what both of you and John do. And so we just thanks for working in the schools and treating it more like a not just a 9-to-5 job. And I know where your heart's at, and we've talked quite a few times about your job and whatnot, and your goal and heart. And we do appreciate it and appreciate you coming on tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good
Thank you.
opportunity.
Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
guys. Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.